This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got three main reviews to kick off with. We've got The Reef, Stalked, another shark movie. Then we have the political thriller 18 and a Half, and another political thriller, Executive Order. Our short shot this week is Crooks, and our DTV throwback is TC2000. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is The Reef, Stalked. After her sister's murder, Nick, her young sister, and two friends seek solace through a Pacific Island kayaking adventure. Hours into the trip, the women are stalked by a shark and must band together, facing their fears and save each other. This comes hot on the heels of, what was it called? Sharkbait?
Sharkbait, yeah.
The James Nunn one. This is a slightly different kettle of fish. Haha. It sort of plays along the idea of the reef as well. But it is definitely a different kind of film, for sure. Steve, how did you get on with Stalked?
Yeah, it was okay. It's kind of like, well, every other shark film I've seen in the last 10 years, really. you know what you're getting. I mean, the only thing that it took a while to get going. I mean, I don't think the shark turns up till about an hour in, really. And then, to me, there wasn't much carnage in it, if you know what I mean. If I'm watching something like this, I want to see a bit more blood and guts, a bit more. Well, I don't. I think there's only one death in it, is it?
Yes. Spoilers.
Well, I'm sorry, but you know, I expect a lot more than that. And the other thing as well was the sister's murder at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a spoiler. That is literally the start of the film. So that's the first 2 minutes. And now it's like they're trying to play it back into a psyche, you know, like when she goes under the water and stuff. That didn't make sense to me at all. You know, obviously, you know, you grieve and stuff like that, but you don't get flashbacks to your own sister's murder where you're in your sister's head. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean.
I don't know. I'm giving that a pass. I think, you know, because the way she discovered the body, the way the husband was acting, you know, she saw, you know, the crime scene, as it were, you know, sort of walking through the house and the blood on the walls and stuff. I think that whole thing. I think she's played it through her head.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's a trauma. Yeah. I think that's fine as well. Yeah. I also, though, I was a bit confused at first because I was thinking, after she discovered it, was she then attacked? And I thought, is that her? Then you could tell. Actually, no, that's not her. When you could actually see the face clearly, that it wasn't her. That it was just obviously her kind of imagining of what had happened, because obviously she didn't actually see it taking place. But I kind of got what they were doing there. That was okay for me.
It might just be my brain this week because it's COVID riddled and it's just not. It's hard to concentrate on anything really, but. Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I liked the shark attack. Didn't seem to be CGI though. That was one thing. It seemed like it was kind of stock footage that they really edited together really well. So that was a bit of a bonus for it. And I can't really say much more than that. You know, it is what it is. It's every other shark film in the last 10 years. You know. But not a bad version.
Yeah, I'd go with that. Rich, your thoughts on Stalked?
Well, before I get on to that, have either of you seen the original? Because I haven't.
Yes.
I thought I had, but I don't think I have.
So, Mike, am I right thinking this is a standalone?
It is, yeah.
Sequel,
Totally, yeah.
Totally, completely distinct. Yeah, I was thinking was a character, returning or something, but it didn't seem to be the case. So, yeah, I kind of concur with Steve on a few of those points. It is. I mean, it's so routine. Even the music is pretty Jaws-like at times. I mean, it's amazing to me still. I mean, surely Jaws is the most influential film that was ever made, apart from perhaps Night of the Living Dead, because of the amount of copies there are. I mean, this is really straightforward duplication in a number of senses. Obviously, the location, the characterization and everything is a bit different. It's closer more to Shark Bait, still a bit different, but I think Shark Bait was a really good example. In that film, you had like really, really douchey characters.
Yes.
In this one, you don't. They're much more likable characters in this one. What I quite like was that it's an all-female cast, so there's like an element of really reminded me of The Descent. Mm-hmm. The girls going on a trip together, and things not really panning out and stuff. Because it was called The Reef Stalked, and it started out with that sort of, controlling, abusive kind of relationship kind of thing. I wasn't sure whether one or two things was going to happen, which didn't happen. Was one, is that guy going to follow her on her trip, and he's going to turn up at some point? So I thought maybe it was going to turn into like a psycho stalker kind of movie, or could it have been like a crazy Jaws: The Revenge kind of thing? So the guy kills himself, he becomes a shark and stalks her or something. I thought that would have been good, but I think somebody's probably already done that. I mean, there's so many sort of mad shark ghost kind of movies out there and stuff. Maybe someone's already done that, but that was. I was thinking it was going to be a wilder movie than it actually was. I mean, it was very routine. Some of the acting though is really bad, especially when you remember the bit with the little girl, and they're like shark, and she's like shark, and then the mum is on the beach, and she's going shark. I was not convinced at all by the acting there. It's the shark scenes. Yes, there's a lot of stock footage and stuff, as these things usually do, but I think there's a fair amount of dodgy CG in there. Again, seeing it so quickly after Shark Bait, I did think all the attack scenes in that, which are essentially in the same kind of setting, is very much. So in that case, they were on a jet ski basically for the whole time, and then they were sort of being attacked. And this one, they're basically sitting on kayaks, and I did think the attacks and that were much more effective, considering this is a sequel to quite a well-known film, and it seems to have had a reasonable budget sort of about it. I think it is quite low budget as well. I don't know if it's Australian. I don't know if it got a cinema release in Australia, but the low budget stuff really sort of shines through in the attack scenes, I think. Whereas the rest of it, it's a very handsome looking film in terms of its location and stuff. But what about you, Mike?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I totally agree. The kill count is way too low for this kind of film. But I at the same time, this isn't so much about the kills as it's about these sort of women sort of bonding through adversities. So, by the end of it, by when we got to that epilogue, I was actually on board again. It's like, yeah, okay, I can see what you were aiming for with this. I think the photography is great. All the stuff on the water, the underwater stuff, all that's fine. Yes, there are a few dodgy CGI shots, as you say, but a lot of good, sort of well-edited stock footage. It didn't outstay its welcome. It's not as fun as something like Shark Bait or the other Australian one we saw last year, which the name
Great White.
Great White,
the same producers as this one.
Yeah, that was good as well. Interestingly, the director of this, Andrew Trokey, I'm going to guess.
Yes.
Another name murdered for my list. He directed
Jungle.
Well, yeah, Jungle, which we watched, didn't we? On
Yes, we didn't. I don't think we covered it, but
no, we didn't. We did a sort of show, watch thing.
You and I did the watch along.
But he also did the original Reef.
Yes.
As well, which I imagine had a bigger budget than this. But also he did the 2 Blackwater films, which are about killer crocs.
Yes, that was his like breakthrough. I think. I did see the first Blackwater at the cinema. I think.
Yeah, I didn't like the first one. It was basically a guy stuck up a tree, wasn't it? For most of it.
Guy or girl, yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that one either.
Yeah, but Blackwater Abyss is really good.
Oh, okay.
I really like that. It's about a group of people who go caving in somewhere in Australia, and sort of flash storm happens, and it starts flooding, and of course this giant crocodile sort of gets in as well. That was actually really good.
All these films are very, very similar, aren't they? It's making the same film over and over again, it seems. Yeah. Apart from, I don't know because they did a segment on the ABCs of Death called G is for Gravity. So whether that was also about a shark or a crocodile or something, or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think I'm not sure which I prefer, the shark ones or the killer crocs, as a sort of genre.
Crocodiles are, less less. There's less croc movies, so I get that makes them a little bit more interesting than shark movies, which are just dime a dozen. So
Rogue was a really good one. And
that was also Australian, wasn't it? I think. If I remember
yes, correctly. It was.
Yep.
Starred a young Sam Waterston as well.
And who was the other guy? Dominic Purcell, was he in that one?
No,
he was in Primeval.
Yeah, Primeval.
That was the other one.
Yeah. No, the guy in Rogue was a guy called Michael Vartan, who was he was the sort of the male lead in Alias.
Oh yeah, he also did Dead Man on Campus, I think, or the other one. Anyway, we digress.
We digress a little bit, but shark movies, and I think this definitely holds its own. As you mentioned, Rich, there are a wealth of really bad shark movies out there, and which just reminds me of. There's a YouTuber called Shark Movie Mafia. I don't know if you've come across her.
No.
She does these little sort of videos of really, really bad sort of shark movies. Worth checking out. She's pretty funny, I must admit. But she covers the really, really bad ones. Sort of Shark of the Corn and. What was the other one? Something like Poltergeist Shark or something ridiculous like that.
Oh yeah, there's probably an Amityville Shark as well.
That's the one. Yeah, Amityville Shark. There is. There literally is. But, okay, so how are we going to score this particular one, Steve?
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
I think it's got its positives. I did like the cast, the sort of main central group of young women, and their the developing of their relationship and stuff, and I thought that was good, and the film looks nice, so I'm going to give it a 6.
Yeah, I'm going to join you guys on a 6. It is very well done, but from
to a degree, it's well done.
Yeah, to a degree, but it isn't on the same level as something like Sharkbait or Great White, because they had the budget to sort of really go for it, whereas this one is more like Blackwater, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be surprised if Sharkbait had a bigger budget than this. It's either on par or Sharkbait possibly had less money to play with. I think they just maybe did it better.
It just handled it better. Yeah, instead of
that's my impression. I might be wrong, but.
That was filmed in Baja, I think, wasn't it? Whereas this is like in Australia,
Queensland, or something.
Yeah. Okay, so that is 3 6s for the Reef Stalked. Go check it out. Our next review is 18½. In the midst of the Watergate scandal, a Whitehouse transcriber called Connie finds herself in hot water when she discovers the only recording of the missing 18.5 minutes from Nixon's tapes. Turning to a reporter from the Washington Times, Connie finds herself surrounded by strange characters and has no way of knowing who to trust. Okay, I think this started off great. Really got into the opening of this, but for a long period of this film, I was just, They Live, right? You know the fight in
the fight.
Yeah. Where you're just going, put on the sunglasses, for God's sake, put on the fucking sunglasses. This is what I was like with this one. Just for fuck's sake, play the tape, for God's sake, play the tape, because it just kept meandering and all these obstacles getting in the way of bloody tape. But that's my feeling on this one. Steve, what did you make of 18.5?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Mike, to be fair. The start in the restaurant I thought was great. It's building that tension up. Intrigued as to what's going on. Because it's not, I'll be honest, Watergate, obviously way before my time, not something I've really looked up or researched or anything like that. And then it gets to the hotel. And then it just goes downhill. You've got like an hour of a dinner party. And it's just absolute tosh. You don't need it. I don't know what they were trying to achieve with it. That's what's baffling to me. It's like, okay, yeah, you've got this nice political style thriller going on, build the tension up, and then it just loses all goodwill that it's built up and just becomes daft.
There is definitely a farcical element to this one, Rich. What did you make of it?
Don't know, don't care. I really didn't like this film. I just didn't go on with it at all. Especially when it was like, when all the meandering and the long dinner party and stuff, and I was like, tapping out. It's like I had to. I was like, no, I'm not doing this now. So I did finish it in the end. I've worked really hard to finish it today, but I was like, no, I've got better things to do. I'm not sitting through this.
It's a shame. It really is, because as we've said, the establishing of the setup is brilliant.
I don't know. I was a bit lost at the beginning.
Really? So the idea of the fact that there's these 18.5 minutes missing from sort of Nixon's sort of transcriptions, basically, and the fact that they had this long conversation without realizing that there was a second tape recorder in this conference room, which is what Connie ends up sort of getting hold of or being sent. So that was all fine, and then her realizing what she was actually hearing on the tape, which I thought was great. But then there's this whole thing about sort of trying to get a tape deck which can play it and stuff, because the one that the guy's got is broken and all this, and we find out reasons later. But even so,
and what's with the guy on the beach?
The fisherman.
No, not him. The sort of hippie guy.
The hippie communist ones.
The hippie, which just sort of meanders and go. I mean, I quite like seeing Richard Kind as the quirky
the eye patch guy.
But that's the thing. This is oddball, isn't it? I mean, you said sort of political thriller at the start of the show, but it's really just
that's the way it sets up. It sets up as a thing, but then it just turns into this sort of weird, like Rowan and Martin's laughing kind of thing. That's what I felt I was watching almost. It's like this very surreal. Indie comedy. I was waiting for Goldie Hawn to turn up.
But it's not Abigail's party. It just doesn't flow. It doesn't make sense. And then I think the most interesting part to me was actually when they kind of like play the tape.
Yes. There's lots of good stuff on there. There really is.
Yeah,
I wasn't really interested. I wasn't really paying attention a huge amount of. I was listening to it, but it wasn't. It was just like going over me. But interestingly,
a lot of it is true. A lot of the stuff I mean, I don't know if this is the real sort of 18.5 minute.
Well, no, because they don't have
exactly.
They've never found it.
But a lot of the stuff they discuss is actually real stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Stuff about what's the millionaire guy called?
Oh, Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes.
There's a whole thing. They mentioned it on the tape about them salvaging this Russian submarine, and they actually did it. They actually sort of had this ship which was hollow in the middle, and they sort of dropped a crane, and through the bottom of the ship to sort of pick up the bits of this Russian sub and ferry it back to the US without anyone spotting. So yeah.
Well, that's an interesting story. I'd watch a film about that.
Yeah,
but not a film about people just sort of, quirkily acting quirky.
The other interesting bit as well, they mentioned, I think it's like the chief of staff's wife or some high politician, his wife, who had caught wind of she apparently she was an alcoholic, and they were all worried that she's just going to start blabbing about everything. So they had her committed. They literally went into the house, grabbed her, put her in a sanitarium, and kept her there for weeks until everything blew over.
Oh my god!
Yeah. But yeah.
Again, which should be more interesting than this.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I like the fact that it was Bruce Campbell as Nixon, but it did just sound like Bruce Campbell. It didn't really. There
wasn't trying to.
No.
There are some really interesting castings in this. I mean, say a lot of the people you see on Look It Up, and it's like they pop up and they're on the tape. You don't actually see, but there's like Ted Raimi, John Cryer, and the bit I liked the most was right at the beginning where I recognised Troma director Lloyd Kaufman have a little bit part at the front as the boss.
Telling the boss.
So I was like, hang on a minute, that looks like Lloyd Kaufman. I looked him up, and it was, and because I don't know if a lot of these people, are they in the movie because they know the director and stuff, or is it because they're interested in acting and they like to do a bit? But who knows? I don't know what the case is, because Lloyd Kaufman does turn up in films every now and again, like Crank 2 and The Suicide Squad, because he used to work with James Gunn and basically gave James Gunn his big break and stuff. But or not big break, but his early breaks. But but to see him turn up in a sort of quirky indie comedy like this is a bit unusual, and it's only a little tiddly part and stuff, but I got a little bit of a thrill out of that. Nice to see Vondi Curtis Hall as well, who's also, I think he direct Gridlocked and stuff, as well as being a very,
I think so,
accomplished actor. Haven't seen him around much lately, but so it was quite. But I didn't really like, and I definitely didn't like his wife, who was just really irritating.
It was like turning into a Russ Meyer film by that point, I think.
I just don't get what they were trying to achieve, to be fair. That's what's annoying about it.
Yeah, totally agree. In that case, scores on the doors, Steve.
I think I'll give it a 4.
Okay, and Rich.
I'm gonna give it a 3. I think
a 3.
Yeah, a 3.
Oh my word! I think I liked it better than either of you two. I'm giving it a 5. So there we have a 3, a 4, and a 5. There are some interesting bits in here, but there are a lot of meanderings which are going to frustrate, we think.
Self-indulgent, I think, is probably the best way
that's a good way to
describe it.
Yeah. So there you go. A 3, a 4, and a 5 for 18.5. Go check it out. Our next review is Executive Order. Set in Brazil in the near future, a civil rights lawyer finds himself rebelling against a new executive order, a new executive order which orders the deportation of every person of African descent out of the country. Wow, Steve. this is a lot. It really is.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
I enjoyed it, but it's not a film to enjoy. You know what I mean? It's not something you really enjoy. It's
You're sort of watching it with your jaw on the floor, aren't you? A little bit.
Yeah. You just can't believe that something. Well, you know,
you can. This is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think this is the problem. Is you kind of can see it happening, because here we are in a country where we're thinking, you know, deporting refugees to Rwanda is a good idea. So yeah, you know, how far off is somebody trying this on, really?
Yeah, true. But it's very, once you've got, like, I wouldn't say the big action scenes, but the big, deportation scene, then becomes very quite self-contained, in the flat and in the hideout as such and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, very, very thought-provoking, very good. What did surprise me is when it started, I'm like, I know that guy from somewhere.
Yes, yeah, because he's not a Brazilian actor, is he?
No, he's English. He was in Harry Potter.
He's in the Harry Potter films, among other things.
Yeah, and I'm
most recently in the Foundation series on Apple as well.
I've not seen that, so
it's pretty good.
But yeah, but as soon as I know him from somewhere.
Yeah, it's the eyes, isn't it? You can tell by
the
eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it's a second language to him or he's, but yeah, performances were great. Really were good, and especially what's the word I'm looking for? The woman in charge of it, basically.
Oh yeah, the sort of administrator woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nadine Dorries. Well, it's Theresa May, isn't it? Basically, Theresa May when she was Home Secretary. That's basically what it is. Just enjoying her job way too much. Basically, it's like this scene, because they and there is that sort of political insidiousness of it. When you get the adverts appearing on TV, sort of saying, Brazil is a free country. We think everyone should enjoy their freedoms, and especially sort of black people who we think should enjoy the freedom of going back home
of their own country. Yeah.
And you think, Jesus Christ! But everyone's laughing at it. All the sort of, the characters, laughing at the ridiculousness of it. But at the same time, the government's sort of gaslighting everyone into. Bloody, all these Africans in the country. Well, it actually starts, doesn't it, with that woman, because there was this attempt at getting reparations from the government for, the sort of past slavery and sort of stuff like that. And then even when they're sort of televising it and all the reporters are there, they decide, no, we're not going to do it.
No.
It's just a kick in the teeth for a start.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable viewing for sure. Yeah.
Very, even like the next door neighbor, you're just like,
yeah. It's like, when are you leaving? My nephew wants the flat.
Yeah, my daughter wants to rent it. Yeah. It's
Jesus.
just like, oh, you fucking despicable bastards.
Absolutely. But then you get that point where the order comes into force where to begin with, it's like, oh, people can volunteer for this. You don't have to go, but we're kind of encouraging you to do it, and you can choose whichever African country you're going to go to and all the rest of it, which is all fine. And then as soon as it becomes like, no, just grab everyone, send them out, and it's like that poor black security guard working for her.
Yeah,
and he's the first one. It's like
he's dragged straight off.
Working for her. It's so ridiculous.
But again, it's not even. It's how they frame it as well. Even if you look like you've got some kind of African in you, you're going. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? But you're right, though. You could see something like this happening.
I mean,
it's scary.
When you got Trump, Trump called out there's various congresswomen of color who, you know, were quite outspoken. He basically said, well, why don't you go back to where you came from? You know, and you know, Boris Johnson has often come out with similar statements, you know, and calling, you know, people Pekingese and all this sort of stuff from various countries, you know, are incredibly embarrassing. But yeah, it's unfortunately, it doesn't feel as far-fetched and satirical as it probably hopes to be, you know. And I don't know what the situation is in Brazil exactly, you know. I mean, I don't know how tumultuous the political landscape is there, especially, you know, on a racial level. So yeah, God knows. There are times when the film does sort of betray its play origins. You know, this was I think it was originally a play. So as you say, you know, the film does sort of settle down into these two locations. You got the, you know, the underground bit where the guy's wife is, and you know, stuff going on there. Lots of speeches, basically, in you know, the main character and his brother are sort of holding out of the flat. So you can certainly see that, but you know, it does sort of open it up quite well, as well, you know, with all the sort of unrest. Yeah, anything more to add on this one?
No, not really.
And how are you going to score it?
I'd give it I'm going between a 7 and an 8, and I think I'll go with an 8.
I'm going to go with a 7 on this one. Yeah, it's mind-blowing to a certain degree how, you know, how well it sort of sets up this horrible sort of situation. And with today's political climate, it's almost like, you know, it's almost like a Black Mirror kind of scenario. It's like, you know, you can kind of see it, you know, with the way things are at the moment. You know, it's like 2 steps removed. So yeah, a 7 and an 8 for Executive Order. We certainly recommend you go check this one out. Our short shot this week is Crooks. 2 young women plan to rob a convenience store but are unprepared for what awaits them. Very well set up, this one. Really enjoyed it. I was reminded of another film we covered, which was about the girl on meth who goes...
That's exactly the one I thought, the Jim Cummings movie.
The Jim Cummings one, that was it. That was really good. But yeah, this has got a sort of similar vibe to that. You know, these 2 young women have no clue really what they were doing, going into this store to rob them, and things happen, basically. Steve, do you enjoy this one?
Yeah, it was okay. There's just one thing that annoyed. There's kind of like a time jump about 3/4 of the way through. Now, I don't know if they were trying to paper over cracks or, you know, budgetary wise or whatever, but that jump just didn't sit right with me when I was watching it. I don't know why, it just slightly annoyed me, but yeah, I knew it was like where it was coming from. Obviously reminded me of Clerks.
Yeah, so I was going to say, there's definitely sort of a little bit of a Clerks feeling to it. Yeah,
without a doubt. And yeah, it's okay. Performances are good. I like the little twist. And yeah, it was enjoyable. Yeah.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, I thought it was great. The sort of banter-driven, you know, nature of it. The performances were, you know, sparky, and you know, I love the characters and the dialogue. It was really fun, and you know, the way it sort of does it sets it all up, and their motivation is sort of going in because basically they've got to get some money to pay some vets bills or something, and the, you know, they find themselves in over their heads and stuff, you know, that's how, like you were saying, reminding of the old I can't remember the name of it, but the Jim Cummings short, which had the whole thing with the crossbow and everything going on.
Right.
There's a little bit of there's a couple of little dark. It's got like a dark edge to some of the scenes because it's like somebody's like dead or seriously hurt or something, and a couple of bits, and there's not really much of an effort on the characters' parts. They are a bit selfish and that, but I love the energy of it. I like the way it looked. It's from the director and cinematographer Andy Chen on his Locust Garden, I think, YouTube channel. He did Swarm, which was that sort of zombie MMA kind of thing, which was really interesting. And also recently there was another short he did called Lying Beside You, which is a thriller, which has got which I think is pretty interesting. Is everything that I've seen of his so far, of which I've only seen a handful, I've been quite keen on. But this for me is the best thing that I've seen. It's got the most consistency, and it works best as a film. Looks great, beginning, middle, end. It's a great little package. It's about 8 minutes long. It feels like it's done its job. It sets everything up really nicely. You could do something more with these characters. But I think the way it's done is good enough for me, and it's got that nice little has a sort of a quirky little payoff at the end. But yeah, I like it could have been a tie-in. You could easily see it being the Clerks, the quick stop or whatever kind of thing, kind of setting and stuff. But yeah, I thought it was really well played. Really, really one of my favourites of the year so far.
Yeah, it's really good. We enjoyed Swarm, but that was a bit sort of awkward, sort of in the way it tried to sort of marry up its two sort of genres, sort of had the MMA bit and then you had the zombie bit, and it was like
when you got the sort of heartfelt stuff as well, which,
exactly.
Sort of sound a bit awkward. And this one does a similar thing, like what Stephen saying about the jump part, where it sort of goes in and then they decide to sort of do we're not going to show this part of the story. We're just going to show where did they end up after sort of the kerfuffle, as it were, and because that's what they're interested in, rather than just showing you kind of the things that you would expect. But I thought, and maybe budgetary reasons as well, I'm not sure. But I think this one sort of, it does play with a couple of different themes. It's sort of like the quirky sort of indie comedy kind of stuff, and the sort of more typical comedy and a little bit of a darker edge at times. But yeah, I was really, really, really surprised. I really loved this as soon as I saw it. I watched it twice now. It's really good.
Yeah, it is a very good one. We don't score the shorts, but you will find a link in the footnotes below. Please go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is TC2000. Somewhere in an apocalyptic future where the rich live underground and the poor are left to fend for themselves on the surface, corrupt members of an underground security force plot to destroy the surface. That was from IMDb. That's not my writing. Disclaimer. Okay, so we got Billy Blanks, we've got Matthias Hughes, and we have Bolo Young in this one. It's very low budget for sure, but it's good to sort of see all three of these guys sort of mixing it up. There are some interesting sort of twists on things like Demolition Man, in that in that one, it's all the have-nots are forced underground, where in this one it's all the the rich and powerful guys supposedly living underground, and all the scum are on the surface. But shades of RoboCop, Total Recall, all sort of thrown into the mix here. Steve, how did you get on with TC2000?
It does what it says on the tin. It's your typical early 90s B-movie actioner, where, like you said, they throw everything in there. Total Recall, obviously RoboCop. Demolition Man was the big one for me that it reminded me of.
It was the berets, wasn't it?
It's the berets.
It was, and also the the double crossing. Get the baddies in, but it's also someone who's helping them out.
That's right. Yeah.
Obviously it's not Nigel Hawthorne, but
and instead of Wesley Snipes as a bad guy, you got Billy Blanks as the good guy, who's very Wesley Snipes like.
Yeah. All in all, decent fun. I mean, what really impressed me about it was like the sets and the set design. You know, because I'm presuming it's an old, I don't know, electric tower or something. You know, a power plant or something like that. But I thought they used it really, really well, especially at the end, and you know where they're trying to hunt each other down, you know, a bit of cat and mouse and stuff like that. And you even get like the bit of Chinese mysticism thrown in there as well, you know. Yeah, it was decent fun.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Rich, do you actually seen this one before?
No, I hadn't. No, I've always wanted to.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it wasn't what I was. You know, I guess these things never are quite what you expect they're going to be. But yeah, it was a real mix. I mean, obviously the Terminator influence, because the TC2000 is a kind of a reference to the T1000, which was which was a year before this. But yeah, Demolition Man was the same year, 1993. Yeah, it started to go down this sort of RoboCop route, and I thought, aha, okay, it's going to do RoboCop, and then it kind of does it for a bit and then stops, and you know, the character is it's Bobby Phillips's character who's the partner. So imagine RoboCop, but instead of Murphy being turned into RoboCop, it's his partner, the one played by Nancy Allen.
Yeah.
So imagine if she had been turned into RoboCop. Is sort of the concept that we're working on here. But then, you know, she very quickly stops being, just because they dress her up by, she's like what you would say now, like a WWE diva, but back then like a glow, gorgeous ladies of wrestling kind of, or you know, Poison music video kind of look that her character's got. And she does a little bit of fighting and stuff, but then she sort of blends into the background again. The guys are back in the forefront, and it's more about Billy Blanks still sort of trying to find her and trying to sort out what's going on. But so this is one of those movies that was coming out in the wake of Bloodsport, where Bolo Young is top billed, but actually isn't in the movies very much. He's kind of the guy who was there to sort of draw people in, because he was the bigger name. And actually Jalal Murhai is also a bigger name. So Billy Blanks is third billed, but he's actually the proper lead. Murhai in this is who's also the producer. It was his company, Film One, that made the film, and he is the villain and he's the guy in the beret and the sort of crayon on his face and stuff. Yeah. But so it is all over the place. It's got it's not particularly good, but I think it does fall in that tradition of the sort of post-apocalyptic, you know, movie where, you know, Roger Corman, Cirio Santiago, all that kind of thing. Bloodsport 2050 came to mind specifically.
The Gary Daniels one, Firepower, is another one that.
Yeah, all of those. Yeah, PM Entertainment did quite a few of them as well. So it's got no money. You know, they're wearing these the uniform, the outfit, that the helmets that they're riding around on their bikes on it was like a welding helmet, kind of thing and stuff. And they've just sort of used what they got, and they've tried to do a lot with not very much. And there's plenty of fights in it. There's so many fights. I mean, it's packed. There's probably too many fights, not enough story, but they're fighting all the time, and you know, it gets to the point where you know, towards the end, they all have to rip their shirt. There has to be an excuse for them to all take their shirts off, so they can fight against. And Bolo Young is sort of, you know, he's doubled a little bit, but he's doing a lot himself, and you know, I think he's dubbed a bit as well. But
his kicks, you know, I was really surprised how many kicks he was throwing, you know, that weren't doubled.
Yeah, and I liked all the stuff that they kind of, as Steve was saying, they're throwing the mysticism. So there's this bit where there's this subplot sort of theme of him pushing his chi through things, and they demonstrate this with the old gold desk toy, gold ball, not gold, silver ball thing, which you don't really see. Really,
Newton's Cradle.
Yeah, so you don't really see them much anymore, but they were very big sort of 80s, 90s.
Big in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a key point where he uses that technique to quite devastating effects or whatever, which reminded me of something recently that, more recently, Steven Seagal did the film Shadow Fury, not Shadow Fury, was it Shadow Man? And he was sort of destroying a watermelon, sort of thing, and it was kind of working on a similar concept or whatever. But this version is much better because he literally basically does it through a blast door or something, through a door, like a metal door, and he still manages to kill it. So it's really cool. There's some really cool bits like that in it.
There were a couple of nice sort of attempts at things. For example, Billy Blank's his fighting ability actually improves. At the beginning, he's okay, I guess, but then he does some training with Bolo, sort of around about 3/4 way, and
montages.
Yeah, but they are able to actually show that he is a better fighter for it, without sort of drawing too much attention, which I thought was quite good. And Bobby Phillips's character Zoe, I thought she played the two sides quite well. So the first half is like, as you say, sorry. Oh God, what's the name of the character in Robocop?
Zoe.
No.
In Robocop.
What's the name of the actress?
Nancy Allen.
It's Nancy Allen.
Nancy Allen, yeah. So the first half she's sort of channeling sort of Nancy Allen. Then the second half, she's just like got this sort of sadistic smile on her face all the time, and he's just enjoying beating the shit out of people, which I thought was it was a decent bit of characterization, I thought.
And have you ever seen the TV movie series Chameleon?
No.
So she was the lead she was the lead in this series, Chameleon 1, 2, and 3. I think they were made for cable TV.
All right.
One of them was quite Die Hard like, but they were basically like she's an enhanced sort of character, female action hero kind of character, and this kind of was an early one, sort of about 5 years before that, doing something kind of similar. I've seen her in that, and I've seen her in a few other things. So she was one of the reasons that I've always wanted to see this, because this was kind of one of her first movies, and she wasn't really known at that time. She's kind of she's still around, but I think sort of towards the late 90s she was a bit more higher profile.
It's been in a lot of stuff.
She has been tons of stuff, yeah. So that brings a little bit more diversity that you got her. The guy playing the bad guy in the beret with the moustache, he really reminded me a lot of Powers Booth for some reason. So it was like Powers Booth with the moustache kind of thing.
More like Lee Horsley, but there you go.
Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with him. I confess. No. There's that scene with is it with Bolo where he fights the giant guy? The really big. It's like twice as tall as Bolo is.
Yeah, I sort of like Game of Thrones vibes for that guy.
He's like the mountain, isn't he?
Yeah. So at that point, I was thinking, well, hang on, what's going on here? Because that's about the second time that Bolo showed up.
Oh yeah, it didn't really make sense, did it? What was he up to? And then he kind of meets up with Billy Blanks' character, because you have to have an underground fighting ring thing going on as well. And so they kind of meet up there, and that's where they hook up. I think Bolo's on his own personal mission of vengeance, and that maybe maybe I missed something, whatever. But there's a lot in here. There's a lot of ideas thrown in here.
I just think they stuck that in just to give him another scene. To be fair.
Yeah. Well, the original. I mean, although we're going, the TC2000 is a reference to Bobby Phillips' character, who's the TC2000X. For some reason, they decided to just, I guess, drop the X from the title, but because it doesn't sound very good, really. They should have just left it TC2000, and they probably didn't realize. They probably realized that a bit too late. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there. See, I went off on one about the title, and now I can't remember what I was going to say. What were we talking about a minute ago?
TC2000.
No, before I got onto the TC2000.
Like the scene with Bolo Young.
Sorry?
Sorry,
yeah.
Bolo
So yes, sorry. So TC2000, which I didn't pick up on until later years. I think it was originally a reference to the Tiger Claws franchise, which Jalal Murhai had made with Bolo Young previously.
Right.
So I think this was kind of we're going to do another Tiger Claws movie, Tiger Claws 4, but we're going to do something different, set it in the future. So I think that's what the origin of the TC was. And then in the movie, they kind of go, oh, it means tracker controller, which just sort of just doesn't quite roll off the tongue very well. But I think this was originally designed or intended as a Tiger Claws movie, but a futuristic one. And in the early, at least in the first one, Bolo Young is kind of he's basically a serial killer in the first one, and then he becomes not so bad in the sequel. It's like I think if I recall correctly, he's like the main antagonist, like proper serial killer, who then becomes actually like an aid to the hero, if I recall correctly, in the sequels. Anyway, so I think those early scenes are kind of in that vein. They're kind of a throwback to they're copying that tone of the movie, and they're kind of mixing that in with all the Billy Blank's RoboCopy kind of stuff. So Jalal Murhai turning up as the Picasso, who's kind of this pretentious, well, not Joker like, but sort of theatrical kind of villain that they've got in the. Sorry, here's the other thing. It's the most cheesy sci-fi language in this movie. It's like the above world or something they call it, and everything they refer to is like really like a little child's written it.
Well, you say actually, you just reminded me of another bit. You know when so Billy Blanks' character he sort of quits the force and gets sort of deprogrammed and stuff, and then they decide that we're going to kill him anyway. So that, and the inept guys they send after him, and they're sort of saying things like, "Aha, we've got you now." And it's like, what do you mean you got me now? It's like, were you trying to get me before? It's just like really, really bad dialogue. There he is. Go get him. No, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, Billy Blanks' character was he seemed quite happy to go off and be put in, have an operation and stuff like that. To get. They were like, right, well, you don't agree with us. You're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to wipe your brain now. It's like he's like, all right, go and wipe my mind then, or something. The director of this, TJ Scott, who again, I thought this was directed by Murhai, who directed quite a number of the films that he made. But this is TJ Scott, who's got quite an extensive TV career on things like Gotham and what's it? A few he's done Star Trek Discovery. He's done a couple of episodes of Doom Patrol, The Strain, La Femme Nikita, Hercules. Funnily enough, after this, he apparently did an episode of the RoboCop TV series, which is quite funny. And Kung Fu: The Legend Continues. So he's more established as a TV director than a movie director, but I don't know. I think he did okay with this. This was probably more of a, Murhai was probably behind the sort of guiding it along quite heavily, because it is very much in the style of his typical movies. One important thing I want to mention is when we were first talking about, when I first recommended doing this, I found it on YouTube, and it's on Film One's official YouTube channel, so it's a proper release. It's not too dodgy. But then we're watching it, and there's this sudden jump cut, and then I was looking into it, and I realised that it was 10 minutes shorter than what it says on IMDb. Which, now, this is not the first time this has happened to me with one of the Film One uploads of one of the movies. There was another one called Crisis with David Bradley, which I'd wanted to see for a long time, but it's never really got released. And it turned up, and that's got some really odd, bits just sort of cut out of it. But this one is like a proper missing reel. I discovered it was literally a whole 10-minute chunk from just before the hour mark. And there's some key information in that 10 minutes of who Zoe is. There's a sort of a key why she's such an important character, and the villain does some sort of reveals himself, and takes care of some one of the guys who's in his team, and how they end up at the thing. So if you're watching the movie on YouTube, you got to be careful. There's actually 2 on there. That there is an upload also on the Film One channel of the full length of the film, which is about 1 hour and 35 minutes. But the one we initially were watching, and I don't know if this is the one you actually ended up watching, Mike, is an hour and 25 minutes, and probably got a bit confusing.
Yeah.
You did watch the full version, good.
Yeah.
And also I noticed at the end of that it appears to be, because it's in widescreen, which is great. You know, it wasn't the pan and scan version. It was fill in the 16:9 ratio. It seems to be basically a rip, or at least the same copy as Vinegar Syndrome, because the Vinegar Syndrome logo comes up at the end, which I thought was quite wild. But so Vinegar Syndrome released it on Blu-ray in the United States, and I guess around the same time Merhai's got the rights. I guess he says, well, you can release it, but I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel anyway. That's the only reason I can justify that they've done that. But so if you're interested in this film and other stuff, it's worth having a look on the Film One channel. But do be wary of edits. Say, this is a thing with as a slight aside, this is a thing with YouTube. Sometimes you see films that have been loaded up officially or unofficially, where you do get these edits. Now, some of them are what I consider like YouTube edits, where they've taken out some of the sex and violence so it doesn't flag and doesn't demonetize and things like that. So if you ever find a film that you want to watch on YouTube, check it against the running time on like IMDb or whatever, because then you'll be able to tell how much they've edited it down. Because if I'd have discovered this at 1 hour and 25 minutes and realized that there was 10 minutes missing, I would have never started watching it. But then it's, if you dig a bit deeper, sometimes you can see another version. For some reason, they didn't take down the faulty version, as it were. I don't know why they didn't just leave the proper one up there. Who knows? Maybe they just don't monitor their channel very much. But anyway, it's good to know they're out there and that we can see it. But TC2000 is one of those ones that's actually really, really easy to find. There's loads of old DVDs and stuff floating around of it. It's never been out of print, as far as I'm aware. And say there is this Blu-ray version now. I don't know if there's any extras on that, but it's I wouldn't say it's a favorite, but it's certainly, they don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. This was a lesser film for me, for sure. I enjoyed the performers, but boy, did it drag at times, even with all the fights.
Well, the fights are a lot of the fights are filler, aren't they? I mean, it's kind of like it's. I mean, it's 1 hour and 35 minutes. It was actually pretty long. I mean, the film could have been easily trimmed down to 1 hour and 20. It didn't need to be so packed. I mean, some of the getting back to the production designers of it. So you get this the final part of the film is in this missile silo, which is pretty striking. I mean, for the most part, most of the film is running around this power plant kind of environment. So it's all corridors and pipes and stuff for basically the whole film. And then you get this missile silo. But the missiles at the centerpiece of this, which is obviously a ticking bomb kind of countdown clock thing, is like 3 television sets with a little tube that's firing up for fireworks.
Literally fireworks. Yeah,
literally fireworks. But they're supposed to be like it's all to do with.
I did think as well, because they set this thing up, and suddenly it's firing this rocket into the sky, which explodes, and I'm thinking, oh wow, it's going for this really nihilistic ending where they're so hung up with fighting that they've forgotten about actually trying to save the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, then it turns out, no, there's actually a series of rockets that they're firing into the sky, releasing this virus or whatever. But yeah, just for a moment, it's like you're spending so much time fighting these guys, you've kind of forgotten that the reason you're there is like. But there you go. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. There's some really good. There's not a great deal, but there are some really good stunts in this as well. I mean,
there's some good overhead shots as well. To make it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, and there's that bit towards the end. They climb up the silo, or he hangs. He jumps onto a lift. That's going up, and then it goes to a gangway bit, and it's all quite high up. and then they do a stunt with like hanging a guy basically. So they throw him off, and he's got the rope wrapped around his neck, and it's like it looks properly real. I was like, I don't know, it might have been a dummy or something, but it looked like somebody was really taking that fall and could have potentially really broken their neck. I quite like that. And say the bit where the climbing up to on the elevator shaft kind of thing, which reminded me again of like Total Recall, but without the arms being chopped off. But and it was just sort of that sort of elevated a bit beyond the sort of, it was nice to see some sort of practical action, stuff rather than just purely, just got punch fighting and whatnot. I say there's a lot in here. I think it's definitely worth seeing. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly not a favorite. I'm glad I've seen it, but I think there's enough little odd, bits and quirks and stuff like, Bolu Jung and the stuff they do with him and the training montages and everything that I thought it was a really good time. I'm not a fan of Murhai. Got to be honest, he's not one of my favorites from the period. I've seen a few of them. He doesn't really have much charisma, but he did a couple with Cynthia Rothrock as well. I don't know if you've seen any of that stuff. I can't even remember the title of it now, but he's worked with like Lauren Avedon and stuff quite a lot. And his films there's one called Risk Factor, which is more recent, which I do want to check out just out of curiosity. But I'm mostly interested in him because he's I think he was born in Brazil and he's Lebanese, and he's sort of Canadian, so he makes films in Canada. So he's kind of Lebanese Canadian, and there's not many Lebanese Canadian action stars or filmmakers out there. So he's kind of carved himself a really interesting niche there for a while, and he's still producing stuff. He's still around. He's still doing things, but he never became like a Gary Daniels or even a Lauren Avedon or something. He was he's more of a, I don't know who to equate him to, but he's an acquired taste, I think, is probably the best way to say it.
Indeed. Okay, we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out. As Rich said, this one is on YouTube. It's a legit release, so please go check it out. There'll be a link in the footnote. Sorry,
but were there many? Because I watched it on premium. Did you guys get interrupted with many commercial breaks?
I think about 4 or 5.
Yeah, it wasn't not like that other one where it was like every 5 minutes. There was a couple at the beginning and one near the end, but it weren't too bad with this one.
And it was literally like one advert and then straight back into the film.
Straight back into the film. Okay. Yeah, because the other option is, it is available on VOD and stuff as well. So if the commercials really bug you and you're not on premium, then that is an option. So it's really easy to find pretty much any format you want to find it in.
Yep. As I said, we don't score these, but please go check it out. You'll find a link in the footnotes below. And that is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Rich and Steve for joining me again, looking at these interesting films. An interesting bunch this week, even if 18.5 didn't really fire on all cylinders. But
not my favourite week, I've got to be honest.
We've had better, that's for sure. Yeah. But, it can't always be, the likes of Broadcast Signal Intrusion or I forgot the name of the film. That was the one we covered with the hypnotism.
Oh god, Ultrasound. Ultrasound, that's great.
Ultrasound, that
was a good week. That show.
Yeah, that was a very good week. That one. Yeah, that's one of the forerunners. But thanks for listening. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also check out the DTV Digest Short Shots, where Rich puts a link to a new short every evening. That's it. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.